Good morning, children. We are going to study the poem Keeping Quiet, which is the third poem in the main course book Flamingo. This poem is written by Nobel laureate Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda is a Chilean poet. This poem was originally written in Spanish, but it was later translated in English. Its main thrust is the significance of introspection and retrospection. So let us start going in detail of this poem, Keeping Quiet. This poem is written by the poet Pablo Neruda. This poet is Chilean poet, a politician who has appealed to the world to be at peace. The poem is explosive as well as quiet at the same time. Neruda speaks of a world of wisdom in a calm fashion. Neruda believes that staunch activism is not the best way to get into the heart and minds of the masses. Consequently, the poet speaks with much serenity. Furthermore, this serenity creates an aftermath of thought ripples in the minds of the reader. The poet is appealing everybody. The poem is very simple, but its appeal is pen- penetrating into our hearts. The poet wants the readers to take time out of their busy lives for retrospection and introspection. The poet wants us to reflect over whatever we have done. Let's reflect over our past, retrospection and introspection. Let's go inward and think over it, what we have been doing it. The poem is symbolic of stopping all activities and understanding the purpose of the world. Why are we doing all these activities? Are we doing right activities or we are doing wrong activities? Understand the purpose behind our activity and then correct ourselves and see that everybody leads good life. Let there be harmony and unity in this world. Keeping quiet appeals to the heart of the readers in contrast to the intellect. Through this poem, Pablo Neruda aims to get his readers thinking and pondering as opposed to intellectual stimulation. Introduction of the poet Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda was a pen name and later legal name of this famous Chilean poet. This poet was also a diplomat. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1971. He wrote in green ink, which was his personal symbol for desire and hope. His writings are simple, wherein lies their beauty. This poem was originally written in Spanish. The essence of this poem is based on introspection and retrospection. Introspection, looking inward and reflecting. Retrospection, thinking over the past or reflecting over the past. The poet feels that some soul searching is needed for us to be at peace with ourselves and others. Then the world will be at peace. And then there will be harmony in this world. So this poem has universal appeal. Okay, let us understand the theme of this poem, the central idea of this poem, what this poem deals with. In this deceptively simple poem, the words that I use are very simple and appealing. The poet has emphasized the need to introspect and bring in the spirit of brotherhood among the people of the world. The poet appeals for introspection and he wants all the citizens of this world to come together. So how there can be fraternity, how there can be spirit of brotherhood among the people of the world. What are the values that are emphasized here? Introspection, inward looking, retrospection, reflecting over the past, universal brotherhood, how there can be unity all among the people of the world, sensitivity to the environment, how can we take care of the environment, how can we take care of the wild animals. There are so many animals which have become endangered. How can there be peace, empathy? How can we have concern for others and unity? How can we all be united? Let's stop fighting among ourselves and see that we all become united and work together for the sake of this earth. Now let us go to the first stanza. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. Now we will count to 12. Why 12? Because there are 12 hour signs in the clock. So 12 being the number of hours shown in a clock or the number of zodiac signs. So 12 number has got significance. In a clock you'll find 12 numbers. So he requests everyone to remain still. We will all keep still till we count 12. So if we keep all still, if you keep quiet, and if you don't do any activity, then what will happen? When you just keep silent, then what will happen? For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Now we have created barriers among ourselves because of different languages. We have created so many differences among ourselves because we don't speak one language. Linguistic differences. The differences are plenty, but we are not able to communicate each other because we are using so many languages. So let's stop for 1 second. So let's stop for a while and not move our arms so much. So let's not move our arms, our hands. So arms can mean even weapons. There is a pun on this word. So arms can mean weapons, arms can mean arms of the human body, hands. So here the poet appeals us not to use weapons, at the same time not to use our hands, so not to do any activity. So don't speak, at the same time don't do any activity. So then what will happen? There'll be silence, then there'll be quietude. So when this silence is there, this will be totally different kind of moment there. So there's need for everybody to keep quiet because lot of rush is there, will stop that hustle and bustle, and therefore there's appeal by the poet to remain quiet. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. So how that moment is going to be? This moment is going to be very unusual, exotic. It is going to be very different, unusual. So therefore the poet says that if you are all keeping quiet, it's going to be totally different kind of moment. It's going to be totally different kind of world where there will be no hustle and bustle without rush. Without engines, there'll be no machines working. So no noise of any machines, no noise of vehicles. So there won't be rush, there won't be any machine working. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness, and suddenly we'll start feeling kind of unity. Suddenly we'll start thinking about ourselves, and it will be a very strange moment. Probably we did not have time to think about ourselves. We didn't have time to think about our family or our neighbors. But this moment, it's going to be a strange moment. And during this particular moment, you'll find that there's a kind of feeling of concern for others. Now, next stanza talks about fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. What these fishermen are doing, they are whaling. So the whales have become endangered species now. So they will not harm these whales which are there in the cold sea. And those men who are gathering salt, probably they have injured their hands, hurt hands, and they are not able to look after themselves. Probably when this unusual moment is there, when they stop gathering salt, then they'll be able to look at their hands which are injured, and then probably they'll be able to take care of themselves. So man has no time to take care of themselves. Man has no time to take care of those endangered species that are there, and therefore there's an appeal by the poet to keep quiet and reflect over what we have been doing and what is happening in the world. Now, those who are warmongers, poet is giving advice to them. Those who prepare green wars, so those who are against the environment, those who are spoiling the environment, wars with gas, wars with fire. So those people who are using poisonous gases, those who are using firearms, they will stop using all that in the wars. They will, if the wars are not there, then what will happen? Then there'll be a time for us to reflect over it. Are they really worth it? And actually, what happens in the wars? Now, in modern times, there are victories with no survivors. We win the war, but hardly any survivors. So here now, the poet says, we are killing, but ultimately what is happening? We are not able to win those wars because we are also suffering a lot. So therefore, would put on clean clothes. We'll stop all that and we'll reflect over that and we'll wear clean clothes. We'll become pure. We'll divert our minds and we'll stop all harmful actions. And then they should all go out for a walk with their brothers under the shady tree, doing nothing but just thinking over it, what we have done. So if there are no wars, definitely, probably we'll all feel like coming together, and then there'll be universal brotherhood and peace in the world. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. Here, truck is very, very important word, and these lines are very important from examination point of view. So here the poet says, I want no agreement with death. When I say that, there will be no action. There will be no activity. That doesn't mean that I'm asking you not to do any action at all. Here you are reflecting. You are doing that action. Mental action you are doing. You are thinking over it, what you have been doing it. But actually, if it's a total inactivity, then what is it? It is like death. It's a deathly. Life is what it is about. I want you to think about life. I want you to to think about what we have been doing it. So I want it should not be confused with total inactivity. I want no truck with death. Don't compare this with death. So if there is total inactivity, then it's a deathly. But here you are reflecting over it, what you have done. At the same time, you are introspecting, you are thinking over it, what you should do in past, in future. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Now, here, if we would not have been only focusing about keeping our lives moving, keeping ourselves busy with our activities, we have thought about nothing else but only about our own activities and doing those activities. For once, if we stop doing nothing, if we stop all the activities, then what will happen? Then there will be a very huge silence. When that silence is there, then there will be a time for us to reflect over it. And probably as a result of that, the sadness that is prevailing in this world, because we do not have understanding with each other, and it has threatened us to death. So it has threatened us. Now, since there is a silence, probably we'll be able to understand each other, and then there'll be understanding. And therefore, the poet says to focus on silence. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Now who will teach us a great lesson? It's the earth. The earth teaches us that there's always life under apparent stillness. When there's a stillness, when there's a silence, you'll feel that it's like death. But the poet says, no truck with death. The earth teaches us that when there's a stillness, when there's all quiet, there's some activity going on. As when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. The cycle that we see in nature, that once the winter comes, it is not that spring can be far behind. When everything seems dead, later proves to be alive. Now, what everything appears to be dead, then suddenly you'll find that something living, coming up, emerging. And now the poet says, I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. And he asks everyone to count up to 12, keep silence, remain still, you keep quiet and I will go. The poet says, the time for me to go. Let's understand the gist of this poem. This poem emphasizes the importance of self-introspection and silence. Furthermore, these two can transform the life of an individual. The poet stresses upon self-introspection to look inward and reflect over the things. And when you keep quiet, definitely you'll be able to reflect over the things. Moreover, they can also transform the face of the earth. And if everybody does in the whole world, definitely the face of the earth, the future of the earth will change. The poet says that self introspection and silence do not take much time to look within. Any individual can do it and examine oneself. This is easy and takes only as long as it will take someone to count to 12. During this time of introspection, that's a self-examination, it is important for the individual to keep quiet. The individual must say nothing at all, and he should do nothing at all. Without silence and keeping quiet, self-introspection will not work. Silently introspecting will give the individual a strange feeling of unity and togetherness with all others. With this, we have come to the end of this session on the poem Keeping Quiet, written by Nobel laureate Pablo Neruda.